Back on Sold Out Sports Talk on AFR Talk. Roman Gabriel III, your host, setting you up for a second half of your sports weekend. We're going to talk some college football. We're going to talk some NFL football. And remember, you stay in there for the last segment as we start our new segment, Roman, the NFL, as I give you your top 3 games you need to be watching on Sunday if you're a big NFL fan. I'm also going to clue you in on week 2 in NASCAR as we're to the playoffs of NASCAR. And we'll get you ready for that race coming up this weekend in New Hampshire. So got a lot going on. Our guest right now, though, is the author of David Had a Dad. He's wide receiver coach at Charleston Southern and former coach at Georgia Tech and Miami. Patrick Nix, former QB at Auburn as well. And Patrick, I'd be remiss. Of course, the SEC has been one of the most dominant conferences in the history of college football, and has had a great run over the last 10 years. And you had an opportunity to be on an undefeated Auburn team. Last year, the sensation Cam Newton came out of nowhere from a junior college championship to run the table in the SEC, which is impressive in itself. Your feelings about his professional career so far, and besides Tom Brady, he's number 2 in yards passing, broke the rookie record as his debut, so he's been pretty impressive.
It's been incredible. I've been able to watch him a little bit. My boys, obviously with him playing at Auburn, they're huge Cam Newton fans, and so we've been able to I've been able to catch part of both of the games so far, and just the poise that he's shown has been incredible to me because if you've been in sports, each time you step up a level, the speed of the game is usually the thing that you have to adjust to, and it doesn't seem like he's had a huge problem adjusting to the speed of the game. It just seems like he's been able to step right in, and his talent, is just incredible. But I don't think anybody would argue that. I think, a lot of people are arguing, how he would handle with the reads and mental part of the game. And just in watching it so far, it doesn't look like that's been a huge challenge for him. I know he's a great worker from talking to people at Auburn. Great worker, really spends time in there trying to learn what he needs to learn and the little things to get better at it. I've been extremely impressed with the first 2 weeks, with watching. And I think, obviously he got some good guys around him, but it just goes to show when you do get a good leader, a good solid, especially at quarterback, guy that can make some plays, it can really change the dynamics of your team.
Former Auburn quarterback Patrick Nix is our guest on Sold Out Sports Talk on AFR Talk. And, as I've watched the NFL closely in college football here in the last, I would say 2 to 3 years. I think about my dad's career, 16 years with the Rams and the Eagles in the 60s and 70s, and what the passing game was then. I had an opportunity to play some professional football in the early 80s, and then you look at where it went to the 90s, and you look at the rule changes, especially now with hands off on the quarterback, a 5-yard bump zone with these huge and fast receivers that are able to get on top of you so quickly. When you look at some of the rules protecting receivers, just all the offensive advances. We look at the history of football, Patrick, and we see that there's kind of a pendulum that swings between defensive rules and offensive rules. But really, if you're not throwing for 300 yards plus in the NFL today, you're lagging behind. I mean, the game has gotten to the point where it's changed so greatly. Do you think that's positive for the game, or do you think we're going to move the other way as we give the defense maybe some more advantages? Because it seems like the safety issue has cost defenses.
There's no doubt, that you can just tell by the, defensive backs are kind of scared to make that head-to-head contact. They're not quite as aggressive as they used to be, and I do think that for the game as far as a safety issue, without a doubt, it's amazing how big and physical and violent the players are now. I mean, it's really scary. I had the fortune of recruiting and coaching Calvin Johnson there at Georgia Tech his whole career. And the difference in game now as opposed to maybe, even 10 years ago, Calvin would have been a defensive end 10 years ago. Now he's a wide receiver. And you didn't see those big wide receivers like he is back, 10, 15 years ago. Now every single team has at least one, if not two, massive, big, fast wide receivers that, you're right, if you're a defensive back and you can only put your hands on him for the first 5 yards and after that you can't touch him, you're going to have a lot of problems because you can't even hardly touch him and stop him in the first 5 yards, as big and fast as they are. So the game has definitely I think the personnel has changed the game as far as like I was just saying, the wide receivers are so much bigger nowadays that and we had, I think the offensive, coaches finally realized that we better get bigger and faster and stronger at wide receiver, or we're not going to be able to survive. Nowadays the defensive linemen are just so big and strong. It's hard to run the ball consistently, when you've got a dominant defensive line. But one thing you can do is drop back in a hurry and just throw it up to a big guy that can go make a play down the field as a wide receiver. So the game is definitely changing. We all know that it comes back around, so it's not going to be too long before the defense finds its way back to having bigger corners, slowing things down out there at the wide receiver position. Some of the rule changes will be back in favor of defense. But right now, there's no doubt that, I think it's a good thing. I think fans enjoy offense. I think fans enjoy scoring, enjoy that. So I think because of that, it's a good thing. But it will cycle its way back through, and defenses will come back. But the defense that dominates generally is the defense that's the team that's going to win. So defense still plays the most important role when it really comes down to it, because you got to be able to stop people in order to win. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes over the next 3 to 5 years.
Patrick Nix, former Auburn quarterback and Charleston Southern wide receiver coach. And, of course, we've been talking, he's the author of David Had a Dad, which is out now. You need to get it. And we've been sending you everywhere. You can go to Amazon, Books A Million. Also Google it, and his site, davidhadadad@hotmail.com. And just to clarify for our fans out there that may not be, they're casual NFL fans, Calvin Johnson, of course, was a great standout when Coach was at Georgia Tech. Incredible wide receiver, and now standout NFL wide receiver with a resurging Detroit Lions team. So if you get a chance to watch him over the weekend, boy, he's become a dominant receiver in the NFL, and the Lions are on the upswing. But let me talk about your coaches for a second, Patrick. I mean, when I went down the list when you were at Auburn, I mean, come on. You're talking about Jimbo Fisher, your quarterback coach, Tommy Bowden, your offensive coordinator, and his brother as the head coach. I mean, when you have three guys not only that have the football minds that those guys have, but also have the personal walks and the Christian walks, that had to be a great impact on you as a college student and as an athlete.
It really was. The one coach that I had the entire time there was Tommy Bowden. I had a lot of coaches. Coach Jimbo was there my last 3 years. Terry was there my last 3 years. But Tommy Bowden came in with Coach Dye for the last 2 years of Coach Dye, and the first 3 years, of Terry were my 5 years at Auburn. So Tommy Bowden was there the entire time, and just had a really big part in my development as a Christian and continuing growth. Coming from my high school and from my family, I had the spiritual leadership and the guidance of my dad. Then when I got there, I think Tommy just sort of took that role, and just an incredible spiritually strong man and spiritual leader for us on that team. And just so much respect for Coach Bowden, for Tommy, and for the Bowden family, for what they have meant to my life, and from Bobby Bowden to Terry to Tommy, just the importance that they've played in my life, of being around them, as a player, with them as a coach, and now being a coach with them as a coach, and having the opportunity to still speak to them at times, and and get advice or get encouragement or whatever it may be. But just there's no doubt, it was very. I was blessed to have spiritual leaders there. Especially like I said, Tommy Bowden, especially my early on, being the spiritual leader and being such a man of God that I could look at, and realize that even at that level, at a high level of football, there's still good, solid Christian men out there.
Patrick Nix, he's the author of David Had a Dad, and he's wide receiver coach at Charleston Southern, former Auburn quarterback. It's been a pleasure, of course, having him here. Final question for you before I let you go and get back to work. Tell me your feelings about Tim Tebow and his NFL future, and where do you think this young man's going to go in the National Football League?
I love Tim Tebow. I think he is an absolutely the thing that we, as coaches, that we fail to do every once in a while. We try to recruit or sign or NFL, whatever we are, wherever we are. We try to get players with all these great numbers, and we want them this tall and this fast and this big and this and that. And a lot of times we forget that they're playing football, that we need to sign football players. We need to, recruit football players. We need to draft football players, because that's the game we're playing. And I think Tim Tebow is a football player. I think he's a winner. I think that he's the leadership that he has is just incredible. And so I think he's going to be an incredible NFL football player. I think that when he's given the opportunity, truly given the opportunity to go out and play, yes, he's going to make his mistakes, but I think because of his leadership ability, because of his competitive nature, because he's just a winner and just going to find ways to win, it's not going to wow everybody, and everybody's not going to love the way that he does it. But in the end, he's going to find ways to be successful and find ways to win because that's just who he is. And I think Tim Tebow is a very, very, very good quarterback and even a better person and leader. And I think we devalue that every once in a while, that leadership ability, the competitive nature. We want to get these guys out there that have all these all the tangibles, but not the intangibles. And a lot of times it's those intangibles that are the things that help us win.
As Patrick was just describing Tim Tebow, I was looking down at your book and thinking to myself, that's almost a description of David.
Very similar.
Guy who had his faults, but had a great heart, tremendous leadership skills, and the ability to learn from his mistakes. And he was, like you said, a gamer, a guy who, when something needed to be done, he was able to get the job done. And this book that Patrick Nix has written along with his experiences as well. David Had a Dad, Courageously Raising a Young Man After God's Own Heart. And, this will be the best $12.99 you ever spent on a book. Do it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Google it. And, of course, if you want David, he's got a great story. You want him to come out to your FCA, or you want him to come out to an Upward banquet, or you want him to come out to, your business or church. You go to davidhadadad@hotmail.com. Of course, follow him and his young men, Charleston Southern, as they go through the season this year. So, Patrick, it's been a pleasure to have you on Sold Out Sports Talk, and we're going to look forward to talking to you down the road. And nothing but best wishes, and God bless you with this book, and we hope that we're going to reach a lot of dads and families with it.
Thank you, and I know God's going to use it in great ways.
Patrick, God bless you, and good luck with your football team. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Patrick Nix, our guest, former Auburn coach, former Auburn quarterback, now Charleston Southern wide receiver, and author of David Had a Dad. We'll have those links up for you. On the other side of this break, when we come back, we're going to close out this Sold Out Sports Talk session with you, and we're going to talk some NFL. I'll get you started for Sunday. We'll talk about some of your Saturday night games, and we'll get you ready for NASCAR. Got a busy schedule for you and your family, your sports weekend. Faith, family, and sports on Sold Out Sports Talk on AFR Talk.